Hello everyone, welcome back to our complete ABAP plus HANA course on Srijan Institute and Training Center YouTube channel. So in the previous part, what we actually did was we created a lock object. Let's see it. We just created our lock object which was for our department column. And what I told you is that lock parameter, in this lock parameter tab, you can clearly see the parameters over which your lock is going to be applied. And what are these parameters? These are MANDT and employee ID. MANDT is nothing for your client number of your SAP system, but your employee ID is your main primary key of your table. So lock parameters are always going to be applied only on your primary key, and based on that, whatever data will be there on that particular employee ID, you will not be able to change it. Once one user has opened it in change mode, other user will not be able to access it. Now let's see the next part. The next part is lock object function module. So whenever we create any lock object and we are going to click on activate button, what SAP is going to do, it simply creates two function module. One is for your NQ and one is for your DQ. Function module we are going to see detail in the upcoming chapters. But if we discuss it with NQ and DQ, NQ is only there to apply the lock and DQ is there to release the lock. So for NQ, what you are going to see here is that it will the name of the function module will start with this NQ keyword, NQ followed by underscore followed by your lock object name, and it will same applied for your DQ. So if I will go to SE37 transaction code, which is a dedicated transaction code for my lock object, I will start with NQE underscore, and I will copy the name of my lock object and I will paste it here, and I will click on display button. So I will be able to see a function module has been created, and its import tab you are going to see the NQ mode as default value as E. What is the meaning of E here? The meaning of E here is right lock has been created. You have applied the right lock. So if you are going to change into tables parameter and you are going to change the lock mode, suppose I have taken the shared lock and I will click on activate button. Now if I will go to my function module, I will click on back button, and if I am going to again wait a second, lock object has not been activated yet. Just wait for a second so that it can be activated. Yeah, now it has been activated. So I will now go for my function module and I will click on display button, and this time in the import tab you are going to see the NQ mode will be S for shared lock, which is read lock. So whatever lock you are going to select, accordingly you are going to get your value in the lock mode in your function module. So two by default function module will be created. One will be there with NQ, which will be used to apply the lock, and the second one will be DQ, which will be used to release the lock. So this is a very important thing. Now what I am going to do is I am going to show you the practical implementation of this lock object, so that once a lock object has been applied, other user will not be able to change it. So I will also use other user ID to log into the SAP system, and I will show you how other user will not be able to open it. So for that purpose I will create a program. Again, this programming part is not, you are not required to understand it currently. We will discuss it in detail in the upcoming chapters. So for now what I will do, I will simply give a name for my program as lock object, and I will create my program. Create program to understand the concept of lock object. So I will use it. I will go there and I will select a type as executable program, and I will click on save button, assign the package and transport request. Then I will create two input field to take input from the user. One will be for employee ID and the second one will be for the department. Because what I told you is once I am changing for a particular department, suppose I am changing the value of 101 employee ID, and its department. So what I'm going to see is if other user will is going to access that particular employee ID and he will try to change the same thing, he will not be allowed. So for that I will simply go to H11 transaction code and I will open my table name. I will simply open my table name here, ZSI employee tab. I will open my table name here, employee tab. I will open it in display mode. Then what I'm going to do here is I will create two input field. So parameters is used to take input from the user. So I will use parameters and I will create one for employee ID type and I will provide the data element. These things we will be seeing it in detail in my upcoming ABAP course, where we will be discussing the ABAP programming. This is only for data dictionary. So in this particular video we just want to see the lock object, how it is applied. So for now simply you can ignore this program, you can direct go to its execution part. So I will use the department type department here for data element of the department. Alright, my input part is done. Now I will call the enqueue function module to apply the lock over my employee ID value. So I will simply call my function module. Where is it? Yeah, this one. Enqueue is the SZI department. I will call it. I will simply call it. I will uncomment all these things and I will pass the employee ID here, PEMP I will pass it here employee ID so that the lock object can be applied on it. Now if lock object has been applied, what I will do here is if size sub RC is not equal to 0, I will simply send a message that table is not logged if it is not applied. But if it is applied, then we can go for the change part, type E. Now if the lock has been applied, so size sub RC will equal to 0. So I will go for my update part, update my table name. This one is my table. Update table name, set department column is equal to P underscore department, where employee ID is equal to P underscore employee ID. So this is going to be okay. Now if this update statement is running perfectly, so to check it I will use simply if size sub RC equals to 0, I will send a message that table has been updated successfully. I will simply send this message successfully. Type S for success. These things we are going to discuss in detail in the upcoming chapter. So for now you can, if you want, you can ignore it. And then if it is not true, then table has been not updated, type E. And if once my update part is done, I will call the DQ function module to release the lock. I will simply call the DQ function module and I will pass the employee ID so that my lock can be released, PEMP ID. It is done. I will click on activate button. Edit. Line 10, there is some issue. In line 10, P department is too long. It can only go for 8 characters. So PDPT. And here PDPT. Alright. Check for syntax, activate the program, click. Now here I will simply apply a debugger. So if enqueue has been applied clearly, then we will go to this particular section of code. So I will click on execute button and I will give a input for my employee ID. So suppose I am going for 101 and I am passing here cloud innovation. I will click on execute button. You can clearly see my debugger has been hit and we went to line 33. It simply means size of RC condition is equal to 0 and my lock has been applied over 101 employee ID. So once I will go to log in the same with other user, just wait for a second. If I will go to login from other user, and I will try to run the same program, and I will click on execute button. What I am going to see, I will apply 101 and suppose I am passing here innovation and I will click on execute button. See what I am getting here. Table is not logged. This is the message I am getting, and when this message is arising, just go to the program and you can clearly see here table is not logged. It simply means that you are not going to lock it because you are not allowed to lock the system and you will not be able to update it. But if you will go for other employee ID other than 101, I will suppose I will go for 102, I will apply innovation here and I will click on execute button. So you can see here now this is going correctly. We don't have any problem with it. So I hope this concept of lock object is clear because my 101 is currently in debugging mode and we have stopped it. Once we have changed it, my table will be updated successfully and there is no issue. So if I will go again to change it 101, I will be able to change it. There will be no problem because the lock has been released now and now I am able to change it. So once the lock has been released from my previous program, from my previous user ID which is Amrit Raj, Venkat01 is easily able to change it. So this is the concept of lock object which you can see. We have already seen how we can apply over the program itself. We can create our lock object from SE11 transaction code and we can apply the lock object to our employee ID column. So so that if I am changing it currently, no other user will be able to change it. So once lock object has been applied, other users cannot apply the same lock over there because it can cause consistency. To avoid the consistency, the concept of synchronization is there. So now I hope the lock object you guys are able to create. You can create your lock object, you can apply over the program. So thank you very much for watching the video. We will meet again in the next part.